Recording in progress.
Yay, glad to hear it. Recording in progress. Yeah, so I wanted to, I've kind of got a little theme this week. I know that's a shocker. But again, these things happen as a part of what I see as patterns in my life and then my circles of people and what I'm seeing and hearing. And I feel like there's a general theme right now of people just pushing so hard, both physically and mentally, emotionally. And of course, there's a back and forth relationship between those, right? When we're just pushing ourselves too hard, we're not getting enough sleep, we're going, and we're thinking, oh my God, I'm never gonna get it all done. What we are doing, we're doing with such a level of tightness and intensity, and even like running cortisol through our systems, which by the way, literally makes your tissues crispier. We do need cortisol, by the way, it's what wakes you up in the morning at the right time. So it's not like cortisol is bad, having too much of it and too long of a period where we're running it is bad and hard on us, and really ages us. So, you know, I feel like fall in particular, or autumn, is a really lovely time to start to be a little more reflective and kind of assessing, you know, how am I moving through space? How am I moving through the world? How am I engaging with others? What's my self-talk? I've had a number of experiences recently with people who essentially are the types that if I step on their foot, they'll apologize. I think you get what I mean. And I'm not saying that's all of your problem by any means, but you probably know somebody in that category. And we maybe all have little versions of that, ways that we don't feel like it's okay for us to take up space or to claim things for ourselves or to ask for help, or we feel guilty maybe if we have too much goodness and abundance in our life. I've heard that from people who recently like inherited money and are able to like all of a sudden have more freedom and security than they've ever had. And instead of just enjoying it, are actually like, I feel bad. I mean, you know, not everybody has this. I'm like, right? Enjoy it. Then it's your responsibility, all the more reason, enjoy to the fullest. So, you know, whatever it is, I just feel like I'm hearing so much languaging around it, just too much, too hard, in a sense, not enough, just, yeah, bring it on in the good way. So it's just an invitation to reflect that. I would also say fall, autumn, great time to think about too much as in physical clutter, because we're moving towards where we're going to be in our spaces more, etc. And it's really easy, especially if you've been really busy, to do what I call the dump and run. I've been doing a lot of dump and running, and man, is it thick around the edges and down low under things. I'm pretty good at hiding it. So people are like, no, your house isn't bad. I'm like, oh yeah, it is. I'm just better at hiding it than most. But you know, thinking about our diet, again, how much are we truly nourishing our system, and how much are we just inundating it with too much heavy foods, too much alcohol, you know, whatever comes out of socializing, and again, on the go. So have fun thinking about that. We're not quite at the equinox, of course, so that's when autumn energy will shift in a big way. In Chinese medicine and a lot of other kind of ancient modalities, fall is considered to be the season of grief, which by the way doesn't mean you have to be miserable and cry the whole time. But again, it's a time of letting go and letting down, right, where it's natural. Whereas summer is the energy of joy and sharing and connecting. So to just be aware that that's coming. And so even if you're not actually dealing with any present grief or life challenges, you might find yourself feeling kind of weirdly melancholy at some point or what have you. And I encourage you to kind of sink into that, put on some kind of sad music and just kind of let yourself feel melancholy. It's actually really important, natural kind of pendulum swing. And if in fact you have some grief that you've just not gotten to process fully, you know, sometimes we lose a loved one or we go through a period that is just so excruciating and we don't process it right away because A, who wants to like go back into that when you're just coming out, and B, often we don't have the time and the energy. So if in fact you are settled into a time of beautiful abundance and ease and you've got plenty of support in your life, this is a perfect time to, you know, kind of make a date with your grief. You know, pull out a movie, you know, that just makes you bawl, Sophie's Choice, or It's a Wonderful Life, or Schindler's List. That does it for me every time. So whatever you need to do, just have a good cry. It's really valuable. And we know that when we're doing that, our body, our belly is pumping and our lungs are pumping. Same thing with laughing, by the way. So by all means, also pull out a good comedy or call up that friend of yours that cracks you up, because just getting those things moving is really key. Lungs are the organ for fall and for grief. And so actually lungs and grief go together. But now I'm wondering about liver energy here. That shows up. Yeah, and so what season does that show up in? I gotta think about that. All right, I'm gonna have to go back and do some study. I'll get with you next week. So we are having class next week, Labor Day. Oh, that's this week. God damn it. Thank you for mostly laughing with me. If you were laughing at me a little, that's okay too. We're having class this week. Here we are. Good job, guys. Thanks for showing up. You said you would. That's all we're doing. All right. We are having class continuing onward here and at Third Mountain. I've currently got every kind of known Thursday upcoming on the schedule. We had an amazing dramatic class last week, didn't we? Yeah. Had a really beautiful chocolate meditation that we started with. And then we got to hear the storm coming in and rain and wind, and it was so yummy. And then it got really intense and our phones went off. And then I had Jason playing weatherman and letting me know whether or not we really did need to vacate. And then he's like, you should probably go in the house. And so in the house we went and waited to see if we had to huddle in the basement with our wine. In the end, we didn't. We just invaded Jan's house, our person who's renting right now, who luckily also is a yoga person. So she's like, come on in. Anyway, it was pretty wild. Yeah. But I was glad I started with the chocolate meditation, or you guys would have missed it. Yeah. So anyway, love to have you join us. Just always please RSVP if you know you're planning on anything else before we dive in? My intention body-wise is, and kind of energy body, is to just basically move state. And so if you sense and find a place where there is some stagnation and you're kind of wanting to hang out there longer, by all means do. I also invite you to take note of what helped bring you awareness of it. Like what was the stretch or the breath work or the idea? Maybe it could even be an idea that bubbled up in your own mind that made you go, oh, my right hip, or oh, my heart, or gosh, I'm just not breathing deep. I've been so stressed out that I've gone into kind of fight or flight chest breathing. So please take note of that. I'm always happy to brainstorm with you and come up with ways for you to continue to move it. But also throughout your week, you can just give it some special attention. We want to pay attention to our body before it's screaming, before we get the migraine headache, before we get that right, to the best of our ability. I mean, sometimes it's just a damn mystery. We're like, I don't know why I'm nauseous, right? But we would love to know and notice what is going on. So let's come to our back bodies and begin. So inviting you to find this beautiful position on your back body where the spine can be fully decompressed. And so if you would, to help with that, some of you are already doing it instinctively. I love it. Take your legs a little wider. Start to roll the head a little side to side. Lovely. And we're gonna, warning, if you've got blocks and stuff right up in your arm range of motion, you might want to give things a little shove. You can put it directly above your head or down below the hip joints. Yeah, sorry, I should have warned you about that. As you're ready, I'm gonna invite a pattern of inhaling, arms overhead, and you might even flex your hands like you're pushing the wall away. Big inhale. Is there more? Exhale, sighing breath through the mouth and relax into whatever shape you like. Inhaling, reaching, sweeping, never going farther in your range of motion than feels comfortable for your shoulders or neck. So really tune in to that area of the body, because It's an easy area to overdo, right? Whether it's through our movements or just kind of tightening when we're stressed. Love your shoulders and neck. Let's do a couple more. Notice when you're in that upward position, you find that last sip of inhale, where does it go? I get an amazing stretch right here through my rib cage on the side. It feels so great. One more. Inhaling slow, deep and wide, as if it's all you ever do. You might connect tip of the tongue, roof of the mouth, ujjayi. Exhale, coming into your compression breath. Belly drawing towards spine, emptying. Back anchoring into the floor. When there's absolutely nothing left, soft. Allow yourself to be breathed. Witness the journey of the breath wave. Yeah, you can always sweep arms overhead if you were enjoying that aspect. We're going to be in compression expansion breathing for a little while. This is one of my favorite go-to tools to move stress out of my muscle tissue. And we'll be adding rock pose in a minute to accelerate that. Get into my core so that I move from that place that's designed to do the work, not my neck. And to get a deeper exchange of stale breath to fresh oxygen. And one more, to activate that breath apparatus such that you are getting a full abdominal and diaphragmatic breath. And I'll say a little more about that. So when you've emptied completely, and I mean empty till you can't whisper, when that inhale comes, you should feel it start to move your belly upward towards the ceiling. And then you should feel the wave continue up into the ribs, diaphragm. And at the absolute end, you start to feel the upper wave into the upper lobe of the lungs, into the chest and clavicle. If that isn't happening, you might take your hands to your abdomen and use them to invite a deeper emptying. Sometimes we place the hands right on the front of the belly. Sometimes we place it on the ribs right kind of below the breast area, armpit area. The more you activate and squeeze down and in and out with the breath, the more that new breath will just breathe you and start to trigger that healthy breath apparatus. If some of this isn't making sense in this moment to you, give me a little wave. If you're feeling really good in this and you are able to keep your neck soft, your mouth, right, just light connection, tip of the tongue, then you're ready to add rock pose. And during your exhales, when you add it, and it's a tightening of the whole body, hands into fists, shoulder heads down and back, squeezing butt cheeks and thighs. You can flex the feet, point and curl, play with it. You can even scrunch up your face. Have you ever noticed how it's almost impossible to have a thought without it triggering something in the face? A furrow of the brow, a little smile on the mouth, a kind of quirk of the eyebrow. The lips might purse or spread, right? Depending on what you're thinking and feeling, your face is experiencing it, and by the way, so is your scalp. So notice when you're scrunching up your face, can you feel some nice movement in the scalp? I hope so. Let's do about 3 more. If you like, turn it into a sit-up motion. Again, always initiating with the exhale, core powering down, which tilts the pelvis up, and then it feels like the most natural thing in the world to come up into a little sit-up motion. Is there more? last time. And relax. Marvelous. Let's bring knees to belly for a nice little counter shape. And sometimes I will take it into almost a kind of spinal rocking, where my legs might go almost all the way to one side and then the other. And in fact, let's do that actually. When you're ready, take it all the way to one side, whichever way you want. And got my hands on my knees. I'm going to keep both hands on my knees. I know we're doing something a little different. This is open book, closed book. Inhaling, let your top knee open and let it bring you to the other side, and your top knee lands. And then again, next knee leads. And what I like doing is letting my head continue the motion, so I actually kind of roll onto my forehead. And I really love this experience. I will say the only thing is sometimes after doing a number of them, I'll feel like my hip bones against the floor feel a little hard. So if you're loving this but not that, you could do this at home on some carpet or what have you. It can just feel so good. Let's land in the middle, open those feet wide for happy baby. So you might be clasping the blade of the foot, the ankle, drawing both knees down by your ribs. Yeah, and ideally we'd love to have the tailbone tilting towards the floor and shoulders drawing down the back. And sometimes having a strap across the arches can create that neck ease that we're looking for. Generally, knees as wide as you can go, so elbows are kind of more inside. If they have to be somewhere, we have them in versus around the outside, but it's maybe not the best way of putting it, because I don't want you to actively trying to keep your elbows inside either. Just sometimes people have them inside and the legs are kind of narrow. Take it all wide. That's maybe the best way to say it. You'd think after 25 years I would have the preferred way to say it down, wouldn't you? But you guys always inspire new stuff, and then I start reading, I'm like, as you're ready, bring those heels together and butterfly at the butt. And then I like adding what I call a little windshield wiper. So I hold the feet, I come into a little sit-up, although you wouldn't have to do that part. And then I bring one foot towards my head and then the other. And you can do that even if you're laying still with your head on the floor. And again, it might kind of rock you side to side. And you're getting some lovely synovial fluid into those joints, knees and hips, which as we age, we have less, and it's slower. So we need to love these moments and value them, even though they don't feel intense or super productive. They're very useful. Speaking of useful, we're going to plant our feet for bridge pose to come into, I think, one of the most important poses, potentially adding a block between the thighs if you know that that helps you maintain good inner thigh engagement and up and down alignment of the shin bones. Work your shoulder heads in a little underneath you before going there, and ever so slowly raise your hips. I'm going to invite you to notice your preferred way to be doing bridge today. So maybe it is coming all the way out and then coming all the way back in. Maybe it's slowly just kind of releasing your hips from the upper edge and then glute squeeze rising again. If you're feeling neck pressure, lift your chin up and back a little bit. Anchor through the entire foot bed. Some of you might enjoy adding yoga mudra, intertwining your fingers behind the back. If it hurts your shoulder or you feel like a pull to the front of the shoulder joint, insertion point stuff, don't do it. Slowly, slowly release. Ah, lovely. Once again, it might feel just very natural, big knees to belly. We're going to come into a shoulder movement that I'm imitating actually a physical therapy practice. And it's basically a slicing and a windmilling of the arms. In the PT version of this, we would lay actually on a foam roller from our tailbone to our head. which is mostly important so that those of you who have the flexibility, your arms aren't hitting the floor. But I think you'll still get, again, synovial fluid benefits by doing this, even if you're not in the most intense version of it. Up to you if you want to have knees bent or legs straight, just however you feel most comfortable on your back. And the movements are basically this: you've got your hands facing you, shoulder heads down, of course. And I don't mean like, I just mean that you're not shrugging. And you're going to slice one arm towards the back wall. And then you're going to keep slicing and switching. So one hand comes down, pointing towards the feet, the other towards the wall behind you. And as you do this a few times, please notice, if having that arm straight back from the shoulder joint is creating discomfort in the neck or shoulder, just take it a little wider. But I would like it karate chop straight and slow, because I want you to notice, where are those sticky spots? And if that arm is bending at all, you're missing part of the benefit. So again, check in with that elbow. Beautiful. The next time you have come to a slice, pause, turn your palms towards the ceiling, and do what I call a windmilling. And so you're going to similarly just kind of switch positions. One goes up, one goes down, but now your arms are sliding along the floor or just off the surface of the floor. So this is the windmill. And again, you notice, and at some point we slice. And I'm remembering now that I actually forgot to add a little tip, but that's because it involves the roller, which you don't have. But two critical things if you decide to do this on your roller is anchor your core against the roller. And I'm hoping you're just using yours by nature because of all the work we've done. But also to kind of, when you start with your arms up, actually is how you would start. So let's just try that a moment. Bring your arms up above your chest like you're holding a loaf of bread. And just see if you can kind of hug the wingtips of your shoulder blades towards the spine as if you wanted to hug a pool noodle or something like that. And then now slowly, please, let's do slicing again. One arm goes up, one arm down, nice and slow. Again, the goal is to reach the wall behind you, not the floor. If you happen to be touching the floor, fine, but please just check that you're not bending the arm. Anybody noticing anything interesting? Take that as a yes. They're so interested in what's going on inside that they're not saying anything. At some point, turn to your windmill. Again, kind of hug those wingtips of the shoulder blades and windmill. And again, it's a light hug. I'm not like, right? I'm not engaging so deeply in my shoulders that it feels hard to move them or anything. It's just a light contraction between the shoulder blades. Marvelous. And I'm going to invite you to take your hands up, and if you feel like messing up your hair, give yourself a great scalp rub. And then just leaving the hands on the skull with the thumbs right at the base of the skull. Go ahead and dig in there. And I'd love you to make a journey all the way from the center, where there's that little groove that kind of goes up right into the brainstem there, all the way around the base of the ridge, and even to right here behind the ear. Right before it goes up into the space directly behind the ear. And at some point, if you want, you can kind of go up over the ridge and into the little valley up above. And that's where these attachment points are. It's just like an inch or so. It's just kind of up and over that hairline, up and over the ridge. That's like a ridge. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like we were underneath it at the base of the skull, and then we go up and over it. And a lot of times those attachment points are wicked sore. Are you guys feeling that?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So those are attachment points for all the stuff that goes down your upper back that hold your head, right? So anytime you're dropping your head to text, quilt, do whatever you do, walk, looking at the cracks in the sidewalk, I don't know, it's gonna pull to there. And so one thing we can do that can be just so therapeutic is just this self-massage. Removing those tension points can not only benefit physically, but I think emotionally, mentally make us just feel like, whew, more relaxed, less stressed. Let's continue with that around into the front for the jaw and temples. So I'm gonna just switch to using kind of all of my fingers together for the temple area. I like that. And then I take them kind of down the side to get all those little jaw points. And sometimes I get just my index finger and I poke and I scrub these tight spots right along where the ear attaches to the jaw. So much fun there, right? Yeah. Is there anybody here who's not sore in those points? I didn't think so. Isn't that amazing? Oh, again, all the ways our body take on tension. I mean, man, if you chew a bunch of corn chips for a while, go and feel these muscles afterwards. But again, emotionally, right? I gotta get stuff done. I've got a muscle. Woo. So let's stretch it out from the inside using lion stretch. When you're ready, inhale, slow, deep, and wide. Exhale. You got it. You can add lion claws if you want. You can stick out the tongue. You can draw the tongue down. This is really valuable. If you've been kind of just stressed, irritated, especially, man, opening that jaw wide can feel like a marvelous release. All right. We're going to get into some more spinal movements. So when you are ready, join me in table pose. You can spinal rock to get there or however you want. Intelligent hands. Inhaling cow pose. Tailbone draws back. Heart draws forward. Is there more? Exhaling, tuck the tailbone, belly to spine, let the head hang. And I find moving my head here to be very instructive. I can often feel where those other points of connection are that were coming from the top of the skull down into that upper back. So we're going to be doing thread the needle here with some nice spinal twisting. I say nice, but if for some reason this just doesn't work for you, remember we've got a seated version and standing version. Otherwise, right here, inhaling, rotate open through the right arm. Follow it with your vision if it doesn't bother your neck. Otherwise, leave your face down. Exhale, core support as you bring your right arm behind and settle onto the right shoulder if you can. And then we're going to come in and out a couple more times. Inhale in, rotate open. Again, notice neck and take good care of it. Exhaling down and through. One more and we'll settle in our pose. And again, the alternate to this, if you're like just feeling like your neck is awkward here, the alternate, you can just do a seated position or standing where you take that right arm, same arm across the body, left hand at the elbow. I just find the floor version usually gets me a little bit deeper into a stretch around that shoulder blade. Remember to use the breath. It often can stretch us in ways that nothing else can. When you're ready on an exhale, come on out to table and we'll explore the other side. So inhaling, sweeping open left arm. Exhaling down and through. Just noticing as you make this journey of opening and closing in the twist, where do you feel those connections? Is it different on this side? Does it go down to your hip bone? Do you feel a deep breath register maybe into the intercostals more powerfully? Again, that shoulder blades. And find your place and settle. And I forgot to say on the other side, you have the option of using your other hand to clasp the wrist and kind of draw it further away from you. So if you're wanting more intensity, in this case, you would use your right hand to clasp your left wrist and pull. Nice exhale to come back. Inhaling cow, exhaling cat. I'm going to invite you then to take your knees and your feet and your hands actually as wide as you can on the mat. We're going to come into bear pose. Shoulder heads down the back, nice bent knees, so bent that you can almost, as you bring your hips to the ceiling, almost bring your belly to your thighs. And then I'm going to have us kind of pedal. It feels different in bear. You're going to press one heel towards the floor and then the other. Now, it's very easy to kind of hang with the chest if we're not paying attention. I would ask you instead to please draw your belly towards your spine and send the hips up and back. And you'll get a really nice long straight line, but without the ribs dumping towards the floor, which puts stress on the shoulders and puts you at risk, especially of overstretching or slipping in your hand. Are you breathing? Can you let your head go with gravity? I'm going to bring us into a little pulsing motion. Watch shoulders, those of you who have some shoulder intensity. And if this doesn't feel appropriate, don't do it. But we're just going to inhale and come a little forward, almost like we're going to come into some version of plank. And exhale back. And so actually what I'm doing is just pulsing out of our deepest stretch in bear. And returning to it. Again, nice for synovial fluid, also great opportunity to watch what's happening in your body. All right, looking good. And the next time you are completing an exhale, then just settle your knees, bring your feet in, and you're in child's pose. Arms can go wherever. Sometimes people like just rolling out wrists here. Other people like weaving their arms one at a time in between the legs and resting on the side of the head. After a moment of rest, I'm going to invite you to bring your arms forward, like hands as far forward as you can. And then lift the chest, and I'm just going to swing a little. So I'm going to just send my chest a little side to side. Again, nice movement into those shoulder joints. And then coming back to center, but still chest raised. Go ahead and lower your right armpit and shoulder towards the floor. I'm even settling my head onto my right bicep. Breathe and switch. And of course, make any adjustments you need to for this to feel safe and useful. Again, notice the different side to side. So you might go side to side a couple times. I really noticed on my left side when I settled in and breathed, I could feel a very distinct stretch on the left side that was more than the right. All right, and then we're going to come up to seated and do some fun, I think, range of motion with our hips and our legs. And so, again, just taking really good care of your body. I'm going to lean out on my left hand, and I'm going to take a hold of my foot. I find it easiest, in general, if you can get your middle and index finger through between your big and second toe. I know some people hate holding their toes, so like if you are having that something between their toes, if that bothers you or you just can't reach your foot well enough, you could always put a strap on there. But we're going to just take the leg into extension here, and we're going to just swing it. And while we do this, we're going to try and keep that right shoulder activated down. And you can play with how far can I take it to the left? How far can I take it up to the sky, to the right? Lovely. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to place that foot to the outside of the left knee. And this is kind of an alternate to pigeon in some ways. You know, when we hug our knee, here's another place where you can hug your knee. Now, some of us, our right butt cheek is not going to be on the floor. That would be me. Others of you might be able to lower your butt cheek and have it feel just fine. I find if I do that, I feel like I've got some impingements in my hips and it's not yummy. So I'm going to stay right here where it's yummy, shoulders down, and I'm going to kind of bring my chest towards my knee and my knee towards my chest. I'm going to take a deep breath. And that brings me right into here. Yeah, so similar to pigeon. Kind of, are you feeling it at all? Are you getting this? Okay, good. I saw you kind of giving me a little quizzical look, and I wanted to make sure. Quizzical looks are fine, by the way. They cue me like, Might have not made sense there. Marvelous. And when you choose to bring it out very slowly, and if you're curious, you can just slide the right foot onto your left thigh and just briefly let that knee kind of do a little butterfly wing there. Have you guys been seeing some of the monarchs and are they the horsetail moths? What are those called? Yeah, is it horsetail? Do I have to name it? I love them. They're so pretty. All right. And let's release that. We'll do a nice little walk. This kind of whacking of the legs against the floor, I should come up with a better term. It's kind of violent. But it is really good for getting lymph moving. So again, especially when winter time comes and we're not moving as much or whatever, this can be nice, but just feels really good as a kind of a flush, if you will. So I'm going to bring my right foot in, come out on my right hand, and I'm going to get a hold of my left big toe with my middle and index finger in my left hand. So same hand, same foot. And as you're ready, you're gonna just start playing. You know, see what is it like to try and straighten. And if you were wishing you could, you don't have to, by the way, to enjoy the swinging. But if you wanna try getting it straight, you could wrap a scarf or a strap around the arch of the foot and just see. I will say I love getting to straighten my leg like this in this position because I'm so tight in the hamstrings. And trying to do it like when you're in forward fold and all your weight is on it is definitely more intense. This is just, gives me a lot more freedom to enjoy that stretch. Again, notice, you know, what happens for you when you try to swing across the body. You know, do you feel it in those IT bands? What's going on? And I should have said that you want your foot flexed. Hopefully it already is. If you're holding your foot, it probably is. But that helps stabilize the knee too. All right, and when you feel ready to give it up, go to the next thing. We're gonna plant that foot and, anybody different on this side? I really am. I could tell just placing the foot, I've got to stretch. I haven't even started to hug the knee. All right, and shoulders are down. Nice long inhale, long spine. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. All this lovely air flowing in the windows. It's time to notice our bodies, love them up with our intention, with our breath. Maybe a little adjustment you can make that just takes you to that perfect edge. You know, for me right now, it's just hinging my chest a little more forward towards the knee, and I'm like, yep, treasure achieved. Of course, sometimes it's just choosing to breathe more deeply and send it on down. On our way out, again, we have the opportunity to let the foot kind of settle on the thigh. And maybe pulse a little butterfly wing if you want. Yeah, part of, I think, there are so many benefits we get from yoga, but one of them certainly is we get to know more. As I say, we get to start to develop the clue trail of like, wow, my left hip is different than my right. I didn't know that. That's important because it, A, might put you at risk of injury, but also it might be part of a pattern that's also why something's happening up in your neck or whatever, right? Let's come on out. And then one of my favorite things, and I often do this in bed, it's a little different if you are laying flat, we've done this before, but is to flex the feet and push so firmly through the heel that they can come up off the floor. And it's a nice stretch through that back line. And then if you can rotate your toes in and similarly just flex and push. Having a hard time telling your feet what to do. Okay, you're not following orders here. What's going on? You little rebel? And then rolling it out, and I like going like this and kind of letting my knees bend as I flex my feet and then out. And it's kind of fun, but it also, it just gives your joints all that range of motion. Fantastic. All right, well, we're gonna come up into some warrior poses. If you like spinal rocking to get there, you can, otherwise you can just, you know, come on up. We're gonna go sideways first. Let's go that way because we've got just more window view facing to the east. And if you would just start by going a little side to side. Again, we're really waking up all of these connections around the ankles, the knees, the hips. It's also a great chance to notice any habits you might have of, are you overturning the feet out? Are you letting the sole of your feet rock away from the floor? We want the soles of the feet to stay completely connected. And then now if you would check and make your feet parallel if they weren't. Yep, you got it. And then please turn your left foot 90 degrees, so towards me. You got it. And then I'm going to ask you, as you bend your front knee, you're using your back foot to push and root. Watch that front knee and see, is it going over or beyond your heel? If so, you got to scooch that front foot further forward. And that's if it's the knee is going inside of the foot or heel at all. Squeeze your left butt cheek towards that right edge of the mat until your thighs externally rotate, right? So if my knee is angled in, my butt's going to be out behind. If I take my butt in towards the center, my knee should go to the outside. Well, over the knee, I don't want it outside. Make sense? And then right there, let's just pulse it a few times, knowing that I don't want you to actually hold at your deepest edge. Find out what that edge is. Just pulse into it and come on. So for me, right at my deepest edge with that left leg forward, I can all of a sudden feel some stretching happening all the way around to that like sacral tuberous ligament. Yeah, so just notice similarly if there's anything like that for you, and then let's switch. We'll neutral our feet, turn the other foot 90. We're doing a fun pose today, triangle pose, which I feel like often reveals a lot of interesting stuff in the side body where we've been working, and then also now in the hips and legs. So again, notice, is that back foot peeling away at all? We want to keep it anchored like you're a little bluey tree frog. And what's happening in that front knee? Do you need to scooch the foot forward? Do you need to squeeze your right butt cheek towards that left edge of the mat, or think about externally rotating the thighs? And then the other piece I haven't mentioned in Warrior 2, essentially, we're in a Warrior 2 stance, is we want our body just floating upright, which from here it looks like you guys are doing quite well. Sometimes people tend to hinge a little forward, which we're going to be doing on purpose in triangle. We don't want to do it here. In fact, just for fun to find out why, everybody put your hands on just your kind of crease of your hips here a moment. And then I just want you to intentionally face the left with your chest, but intentionally take your head and shoulders a little towards that front of the mat. And notice what's happening in your right hip and thigh. Any or low back maybe too. Yeah, but anybody notice some funky tension through here? That it's not good, right? Come on up, turn both feet stable or straddle again, and bend your knees, please, as you fold. And it's up to you if you want to keep them in a deep bend or kind of play with straightening them as you go a little side to side. Again, I'm doing some really nice pulsing and awakening for all those connections, inner thigh, outer thigh, right? All those partnering groups. And if it feels good, you might hold on one side and take a really deep breath. You know, the breath tells our body, hey, you're safe, I'm not pushing you. And it also invites stretch from the inside. All right, we're gonna come on out. Let's come out, you pick. You can either rotate your hands, come out to downward dog, or you can just come up slowly, hands on thighs, and come up that way, right? Totally up to you, just see what your body might like. If you've gone to downward dog and you wanna play a little and do some dog series, you're welcome to do that. We are gonna all be coming into triangle, and I'm realizing I wanna make sure everyone's got proper block. So as much as I love the squishy blocks, the fabric ones for a lot of things, I like these guys for everything else. You got one? Okay, excellent. And I'm gonna give you one minute. I want to have a thick one. I'm gonna give you a thick one. Excellent. Got it. Great. So yeah, for this you really want like a thick and stable block. Those cork blocks, part of the reason I own them is they're actually the most stable. They don't bend or flex. These foam ones will a little bit, but for what we're doing, ideally, you're really not putting that much weight on the block. It's all coming from your root and your reach, right? So tree frog feet, actually, before we go, because this will help us, come into your mountain stance, feet parallel, and you'll place that block between the thighs kind of above the knees. And we're just gonna do a little squeeze the block and release. I want you to notice what happens when you're squeezing the block. It's probably creating a little of that external thigh rotation, like we had in Warrior 2. The glutes, by squeezing, are going to externally rotate the thigh bones. For most of us, kind of into neutral. A lot of us are kind of a little bit collapsed inward, you know, especially if you watch like old folks walking. It's that kind of, and if you could just get them to do this, you'd be like, wow, you're 2 inches taller again. Awesome. So in triangle pose, I'll just show you one of the critical pieces. So I'll be coming into my straddle. I'm changing position so you guys can see me from the side. I'm gonna turn 1 foot 90. I'm gonna first of all make sure that that knee isn't locked. So I can go like this and it's just I'm hanging on the bone. No muscle needed. I don't wanna do that. I wanna engage my muscle. You can see how my knee kind of hops. And then I wanna make sure that kneecap is in alignment with the ankle versus rolled in. Very important. So you gotta check that. And again, some of that will come from using this to tuck that hip under. Then I'm going to have my hand in my block, you know what I mean? So that if I get to the floor, I can use it and set it down. You might not get to the floor, and I don't want you to make that a goal, because what will happen for a lot of people is they'll go like this and like that to get to the floor. And now I've got my butt went out, I've got torque all the way up my T-band, I felt it immediately at my knee, no go, okay? So for now, I'm gonna actually have you set your block inside of your heel. So go into your straddle. Let's all do it the same way. Let's do left foot forward first. So go into straddle, facing, actually you can face whichever way you want. Good point. Maybe you want to face looking at me. Why didn't I think of that? Face whichever way you want on your mat so you can see me if you want to do that. And then we're gonna all work with the left foot first, turning 90 degrees. And again, the bigger stance, I will tell you, the bigger the stance you're in, the more fun this is, for sure. So we're all gonna check our feet. The back foot is parallel with the back of the mat, front foot forward. We're going to think about externally rotating our thighs by squeezing our butt cheeks forward. See if that did what you needed it to do for your knee alignment, and then engage your thigh muscles like you're trying to pull your kneecap up your thigh, and you should feel like you're really locked, stable there. Good. Then hands on hips. So you already want your block inside your foot, right? Hands on hips, I'm just gonna have you play with cocking and uncocking the hips. So I'm gonna kind of let my right hip cock back into my hand, my left hip cocking down towards the floor. It's a kind of an awkward description, so let me know if that does not make sense in your world. Then keeping it in the cocked position, I want you to check that your right shoulder is stacking back. So it's like you could fit your body between 2 panes of glass, including your head. And I'm just gonna take my left hand, and I'm not pushing or even settling. In fact, I'm just using the back of my hand to slide down the inside of my leg. And I want you to pause at a moment and notice if you've lost any integrity. Take a deep breath. On the exhale, you might notice that you can go deeper without losing integrity. And if you're able to connect with the block, it can give you a marvelous impetus to then kind of root and rise. If your body was kind of sinking and collapsing, using that block for a little support to kind of push and find a long line from that back foot through the crown of the head. So sometimes, yeah, I use the tips of my fingers. Some of you guys are doing that. Obviously, if you want to go lower, you go down to your palm.
I don't know right from left. So you've got your right foot forward.
So that's all my directions are a little bit weird, but if you're in the right position, yeah. See, it makes sense to connect with that. Yeah. Now, when you come up, this is really, really important. I don't want it to create this huge pull down that right side. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is take your right hand and reach for the back wall and imagine someone's tied something to it and just come right up like that. Good, and let's straighten those legs out. And if you want to just come out and roll out your ankles before we do the other side, you can. Any questions, any noticing? So in full triangle pose, at one point, if you want to play with an add-on, you can. I don't because initially because I really want people to get the alignments right, and I don't want to overdo and pull something, which would be easy to do. And this is a lot of body weight to be holding, you know, off of center, right? So, but the big thing I'm hoping you can kind of see in my body now is when I get to the block, what's kind of fun is it gives me a chance to kind of lift a little bit and realign even more deeply before choosing to maybe go deeper and check my head. The add-on is this arm comes up. I don't add that in general because it immediately makes everything more intense. All of a sudden you might have a pull here, all of a sudden your neck might hurt. So that's full triangle pose, and then sometimes people play with, you know, reaching out beyond the head, just like we do in Warrior Two, right? This has a lot in common with Warrior Two, except this knee is not bent, and you get all these amazing stretches and side body work, right? So when you're ready, let's do the other side. And again, I showed you that because I want you to understand it, but I would love it if you are gonna try it, raising that other arm, you don't do it until the very end, right before we're gonna come out of the pose. So you should be spending 6 or so breaths first, seeing how deep you can go and always letting that inhale take you. So now you've got right foot turned 90. And you're gonna check with that right knee, both legs externally rotated, so especially that right butt cheek is tucking in into alignment. And then I'm gonna have my left hand on my hip, and I'm gonna slowly, with that hip cocked, I should have had you cocked and uncocked on this side. Hopefully you did it well. And then slowly sliding the inside, on the inside of the leg. Let the inhale lift you up. And if you can't at all, that's probably a sign that you need a little support. If you ever feel you have to press on your leg, fine, just not on your knee, please. Slowly this way. Think about powering from your back foot through the crown of the head. So you're just this incredible, powerful line. Don't go that far. Straighten this leg again. There you go. That's it. This leg is straight. Correct. Yeah, that's it right there. Beautiful. You got it. And so, you know, what I found is if I'm in alignment, I don't have to go very far before I get a stretch. Right?
It's so easy though to just block that.
Right. And so people often, exactly, if you're not paying attention, you either bend the knee or you lock it in place, and neither of those are gonna get you the same stretches. So if you feel anything funky, again, support yourself on the way out. Otherwise, another way to come out that I did not tell you, and I probably should have, is that you can actually just come up a little, turn your foot, and fold and strap, okay? Otherwise, always be thoughtful, and you can come out from downward dog, but never just like step onto that front foot and haul the weight of the back leg forward. That is a great way to really irritate hip flexors and adductors and so on. Yeah, so inviting you to notice what is your body needing from here. Some of you might be like, oh man, I really crave a dog series, ragdoll, and with people, your low back might love that. Coming back into mountain with the block squeeze could be amazing because then you are reigniting those muscles that you were stretching. So they get to know themselves as both strong and fluid, right? And that's how I'd like to be, right? I want to be able to get a lot done and whatever, but not be all tight and cranked up, right? So it's that balance. When you feel settled in your body with all of that, like I said, triangle is a really interesting and intense pose. Well, actually, I should mention one more thing about it. It can also be done using a wall behind you, and that can be kind of interesting as a reference point because you then know, you're much more likely to know that your butt is going on behind, first of all, because it'll push you over, but also that your torso is coming out. versus laying against.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And if the block isn't tall enough, grab a kitchen chair or a windowsill or something. I guess the window would get in your head, but you know what I mean. But you also then can pay attention to like trying to keep this hip somewhat back. In the case of the wall, you don't want to like crank your right hip or top hip so far back that it then puts torque on your knee. So we're always doing it really slow and just making sure like, are my joints in their preferred alignment? When we're done with all that, we're gonna come to our bellies now and work this back line of the upper back and lats and so on. Because they're a big part of actually what keeps us upright. They keep our shoulders in the position they're meant to be operating in versus forward of the spine, which can put so much stress on them. So just take a moment on your belly and maybe it's a few sighing breaths, maybe your windshield wiping your legs. We're moving towards a lovely little rest period, so know that you're on your way. Just a couple more deep engagements. When you feel ready, we'll come into our jet airplane, and so you'll bring your arms back, palms down. And I've been kind of covering this the last few weeks, that I noticed that sometimes people try to have their hands close to their body. That's actually not only not our intention, it will actually mess up our shoulder head alignment. So I'd like you instead to take your arms out, like at a 45-degree angle, your hands out, then circle the shoulder heads away from the floor and down the body, and wherever that lands your hands is your right position. If your pinkies are touching your hips, I can almost guarantee you you're in a misalignment. Good. Nice deep breath now as you anchor through your pelvis. Inhale, extend and take flight, reaching the hands for the back wall. They may come off the floor, but their intention is more reaching than lifting, okay? Just will do different things for the body. If we put our hands behind us, it will again circle the shoulder head forward and down, and I don't want that. And I see people do that when we do jet airplane standing a lot. If it feels good in your body to hold and add a little kind of windmilling of arms, like we were doing on our back, you can do that. You can sweep one arm forward and the other arm stays back in a nice counter reach. Nice and slow. Feel all that good work around the blade. Try to stay soft in the jaw and the tongue and the eyebrows. Let the heck stay soft in your eyelids. And at some point, you might feel done. And you might want to just turn your head to the side. Maybe you want to wiggle your hips, windshield wiper knees. We're going to do two more things as a group, two more active things here, I should say, and then I have a kind of resting or restorative piece before our yoga sleep. First thing is yoga mudra, invitation. If you know this is not good for your shoulder, please don't do it. If you're gonna try it, I like kind of starting by working my shoulder heads towards each other first, and then trying to bring my hands towards each other. Because otherwise, sometimes your shoulder head is forward, and the act of trying to bring your hand together can actually be very stressful on that bicep tendon and so on. If you've got hands connected, but you can't get your arms straight, having a strap or a sock or a sleeve of something in your hands could help. I'm happy to make that happen. Come together closer. Yeah, because you want it to make that. Yum it. And then as you press your hands up off of the butt and return, I'm hoping you get some nice movements. You guys are doing beautiful, by the way, just nice, slow work. I love it. And if it feels good and you get into a nice stretch, sorry, this is slow, you might hold there and take a deep, deep breath. And release, and your choice to either have a resting breath or come right in forearm plank, and we'll meet you there. We're going to be moving from here into support with the block, and then it'll be our Shavasana time. Anybody know that they want a bolster to be able to recline into or have something under their knees? I can start gathering bits. No, you're good, all right. So forearm plank, you might start on your knees. That's usually what I do because I like to kind of check in and see, hey, how's it going today? How am I feeling about forearm plank? Can I soften my neck, my mouth? And then I might come onto the feet. If you're on your feet, think about squeezing an imaginary block between your thighs, engaging your thigh bones towards the ceiling, and then think about lengthening from your heels to your heart. And often that will settle the body down a little bit into a natural alignment. We don't want to sway, but we also don't want to be up hyper tucked. How about your head? Is it in alignment with your spine or is it dropped? Yeah, try to get straight. Yes, good. And up to you how long you want to be here. Maybe you want to lift one foot and then the other. Maybe you're like, and I'm done. If you need a little child's pose or something delish, go for it. And then we're gonna come onto our back with the block. We're gonna lay down first, then lift the hips and place the block under the sacral triangle. And right from here, we're gonna be coming to our yogic sleep. So this is the time to add back a layer if you want one, to gathering the equipment. And again, I'm happy to be a runner. So placing the block, if you notice that it is just not feeling right, check. You don't want it in your low back. You want it right at that bony triangle at the top of the butt. That looks pretty good. Sometimes when we transition from the bent knee position to the straight leg, we might feel like our pelvis kind of dumps down. Then we need to shift the block further down the body. And entirely up to you how long you would be comfortable staying on the block. I wouldn't stay here the whole resting time. I'd say maybe another, half a dozen breaths maximum, but see what you think. I've just sometimes had people stay longer and then realize that their body reacted and went, oh. Yeah. I do enjoy this invitation of this shape is to remember how to be open in the front body, how to regain 180 degrees. I am not coming around with the shoulder press today because I've got something in my right hip flexor that I've taken care of that doesn't appreciate the position that I have to do that in. So maybe just imagine me doing it. A nice long inhale and then an exhale, settling into gravity. I often like to say this is the most important part of our practice, where the body's wisdom integrates, weaves together and processes through all the bits and pieces. Each exhale, you're sinking a little more deeply down, and down, down. Just slowly expand your breath. Let your awareness of your body rise, sense the room around you. Fellow yogis also slowly coming to the surface. What energy would you like to re-enter your day full of life out there? At the beginning of practice, I invited you to try and take note anywhere along the lines of the practice. You found something of interest in an area of the body that was holding stagnation or that needs a particular kind of support. Something that we're doing in our practice that felt particularly useful. Think about things like the simple shoulder slicing and milling movement can be both very informative and very therapeutic. Here, questions, of course, as I hope to see you soon again. Om Shanti Shanti.